Hi everyone, my name is Mary Kate Flanagan. I'm a PhD student at Mary Immaculate College in Limerick, and I am delighted to be sharing a presentation with you today. So I've decided not to use my camera for this because I thought it might be easier, if you're doing other things while you listen to this. I do have a PowerPoint, but the PowerPoint is optional, I suppose. If you want to look at it, you can, but it's not necessary. So I will just start by sharing my PowerPoint with you now. Okay, so the title of my presentation is Demanding to be Heard, the Sexually Assaulted Female Child in Young Adult Literature. So I'm going to kind of start off, I suppose, by just giving you a little bit of background on this topic. And I will then kind of give you a little bit more theory, and then we're going to see where these things come into play in an actual literary text. Okay, so this paper will explore the ways in which Kate Elizabeth Russell's My Dark Vanessa provides a voice to young female victims of sexual assault. Globally, sexual assault is a pressing social issue. Lichty and Gowan note that adolescents and young adults face the highest incidence of sexual assault of any age group. More specifically, between 42.2% and 59% of women who have been sexually violated experienced this violation before the age of 18. As such, young women are more likely to be sexually assaulted than any other segment of society. This means that the burden of sexual violation is carried by countless children worldwide. Representations of sexual violation in young adult literature draw attention to this critical issue, challenging the silencing of child victims and fostering awareness that may lead to future progress. In My Dark Vanessa, 15-year-old Vanessa Y and Taylor Birch are groomed by their high school English teacher and prevented from sharing details of their experience of abuse. While Kathy Winkler argues that silence is the choice of most victims of sexual assault because they fear the consequences of reporting the rape to others or to the police, Vanessa and Taylor are forced to withhold their victim testimonies. Specifically, the corruption of women's accounts of sexual assault and negative disclosure experiences have a silencing effect on Vanessa and Taylor. By calling attention to the methods used to suppress girls' witness accounts of assault, young adult texts, like My Dark Vanessa, resist the silencing of young females within a male-dominated social structure. So then in terms of feminist discourse on the suppression of young women's accounts of assault, many sexual violence victims refuse to share details of their assault. This is reinforced by findings from studies conducted worldwide on victims of assault. For example, a study by the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre in February 2025 into Irish attitudes towards sexual violence concluded that a staggering 71% of victims did not report the incidents to the Gardaí, 70% did not seek medical treatment following the experience, and 59% did not seek counselling or support services. While it is unlikely for women who experience sexual violation to report their assault, either officially to law enforcement, medical professionals, or counselling services, or unofficially to friends or family, those who choose to share details of their assault face barriers to this disclosure. Referring to data collected by RAIN and the Department of Justice National Sex Offender Public website, the National Child Traumatic Stress Network provides a list of common reasons for victim refusal to disclose details of assault. This includes emotional pain, shame, fear of not being believed, fear of being blamed, fear of punishment or reprisal, limits to confidentiality, fear that nothing will be done, cultural or religious reasons, being unable to prove the incident occurred, fear that the police will not take it seriously, or fear of police hostility. As such, there are several methods of inhibiting women who have been sexually assaulted from disclosing details of their assault to others. One reason that women often fail to report a sexual assault is the contamination of women's accounts of sexual violence. Female witness accounts of sexual exploitation are often besmirched before they are even shared. In her book, Tainted Witness, Why We Doubt What Women Say About Their Lives, Lee Gilmore notes the predictability of shaming, victim blaming, discrediting, and denunciation in response to women's testimony, which functions as prolepsis, discouraging females from testifying altogether. Gilmore proposes three principal methods by which women's accounts are tarnished. Firstly, she explains that to contaminate by doubt devalues the female voice. The witness account is dismissed as at least a partially invented narrative. Secondly, in response to the potential threat posed by males, women are required to conduct themselves in self-protective ways. Therefore, she argues that stigmatization, through association with gender, posits that a raped female undoubtedly ignored this recommendation and incited her attack. Finally, when society regards a sexually assaulted woman as irrevocably disgraced, is to dishonour her through shame. Consequently, violated women desperately search for an adequate witness to hear their testimony who will objectively receive the details of their experience of assault. Gilmore's research shows that with a scarcity of adequate witnesses, many sexual assault victims are unable to acquire appropriate support and have their stories defiled. This idea is further supported by Elliott et al. Through analysis of archival data from the US-based National Sexual Assault Online Hotline, Elliott et al. Found that out of 224 sample cases surrounding child sexual abuse victims, 73% of children described receiving a negative reaction to disclosure. Negative disclosure experiences are common and have an array of unfavourable effects on victims. This occurs when women who share details of their sexual assault are met with some form of backlash by listeners. As a result, many young women report adverse psychological outcomes in their subsequent lives, including social isolation, drug taking, recurrent or persisting mental disorder, and future risk of abuse, including bullying at school. Uncertainty surrounding women's credibility and doubt relating to their level of involvement in the assault from anyone that they share details of their assault with increase victim shame associated with the attack. It is not uncommon for additional harm to be caused to sexual assault victims by criminal justice authorities. This is called secondary victimisation. Largely due to secondary victimisation, attrition is at its highest at the beginning of a police investigation into a rape case. Women are often compelled to withdraw their complaint rather than endure the adverse reaction of third parties to their account of assault. For example, between October and December 2022, nearly 70% of sexual assault victims withdrew from investigations into their case of assault in England and Wales. This is a staggeringly high percentage of retractions. Many people do not disclose details of their assault for years following the attack. Disclosure delays have been shown to indicate an unsupportive social environment. Individuals who choose not to report their assault to others likely fear inappropriate or harmful reactions to their disclosure. As noted by Hockett and Saucier, there are many problematic reaction types. Some examples include blaming, doubting, resenting, distracting, overprotecting, controlling, patronising, and withdrawing from victims, keeping the rapes a secret and encouraging the victim's secrecy, avoiding discussion about the rapes, losing trust in the victims, etc. These reactions can come from anyone that a disclosure of assault is made to, including family members, friends, healthcare professionals, legal professionals, members of law enforcement, and rape victim advocates. Each of these behaviours has the capacity to alter a victim's response to and interpretation of their experiences of assault. Inappropriate responses to sexual assault can lead to the secondary victimisation of those who have been assaulted. This term refers to the placement of blame on victims of assault by those they disclose details of the assault to. More specifically, the term has been used to refer to the distress, alienation, and blame that victims may experience after the assault at the hands of the criminal justice and medical systems. This speaks to the level of authority and influence that those who receive a disclosure of assault hold over victims. So where do we see this in young adult literature? In My Dark Vanessa, Vanessa's personal rape testimony is corrupted before she even realises that she was sexually violated. Her account of assault is contaminated by Strain's influence. Through depiction of submission as standard feminine practice, Strain conditions Vanessa to perceive men's sexual domination of women as convention. Strain uses positive reinforcement to shape Vanessa into a submissive young woman. During scenes of intimacy, he incentivizes her to renounce any semblance of personal authority. "You're so yielding," he says, as I let him move my body around. He made it a compliment, my passivity a precious and rare thing. To teach Vanessa that it is correct to demonstrate servility, Strain regularly commends her compliance. Positive reinforcement is a training tactic primarily used with animals and young children. Opting to employ this method of coaching, Strain appears to regard Vanessa's mental capacity as at best underdeveloped and at worst subhuman. He finds Vanessa easily malleable. In these moments of instruction, Vanessa is socialized into consenting to her subordination. Within patriarchal civilization, women are destined to be extensions of men, not independent subjects. Young girls such as Vanessa are taught that to please, they must try to please. They must make themselves object and allow men to do as they wish with them. Vanessa, in much the same way, is conditioned to satisfy Strain. Trained to consider sexual exploitation as standard practice, Vanessa is unable to fully comprehend the scale of the crime committed against her. Consequently, Vanessa struggles to recollect exact details of her experience of sexual exploitation. Whenever Vanessa attempts to recall particular episodes of abuse, she notes that so many of her memories from back then are shadowy, incomplete. Vanessa is unable to conjure an absolute image of her encounters with Strain. Moreover, the timeline of abuse is as indefinite as specific details of her sexual assault. The darkness that clouds Vanessa's memories is suggestive of Strain's influence on her psyche. Conditioned to interpret her submission to Strain as natural, Vanessa represses moments during their relationship which she deems particularly unsettling or unnatural. For example, when speaking to Strain about a previous phone call between them, Vanessa explains how she had practically forgotten about the phone call and what he'd asked me to say. "Even when I try to recall it now, I can't quite remember. My brain veers away from the memory, repelled by a force beyond my control." Later in the novel, she's able to decipher that during this conversation, Strain had instructed her to refer to him as Daddy. When it comes to detailing her experience of abuse, Vanessa is not a reliable narrator. Her witness account is full of narrative gaps, some of which are filled throughout the course of the novel, but others not. Due to Strain's influence on Vanessa, her memories of his abuse are incomplete. Vanessa's personal rape testimony is contaminated before she can even come to terms with the fact that she has been sexually violated. Thus, Vanessa is incapable of relaying an untarnished evaluation of her sexual assault. Negative disclosure experiences discourage characters in My Dark Vanessa from speaking about their sexual assault. In this novel, the question of negative disclosure experience is explored through a secondary character, Taylor Birch. Taylor Birch's online disclosure of sexual harassment at Strain's hand is deemed to have caused his suicide. Similarly to Vanessa, Taylor was groomed by the English teacher while attending Browick boarding school. In 2017, as the Me Too movement explodes online, many women reveal their experience of sexual assault. Taylor discloses details of her mistreatment by Strain on her Facebook page. When news of Strain's passing spreads, social media trolls suggest Taylor's overzealous exposition of her abuse online caused Strain to commit suicide. Taylor is depicted as a villain intent on ruining the lives of innocent men. The host of a men's right podcast devotes an entire episode to the story of Strain's suicide, calls Strain a victim of the tyranny of feminism, and his listeners go after Taylor. The podcast deems women's sharing of encounters with sexual assault cruel and oppressive to men. Furthermore, it is hinted that Taylor exaggerated the severity of abuse. While Strain is a molester, men's rights activists spin the story to portray Taylor as the real villain. Research has shown the media to be a contributor to the acceptance of rape myths and victim-blaming attitudes among adults. The podcast informs its audience that Taylor was entirely wrong to post such content online. Consequently, the listeners are compelled to punish Taylor for what the podcast deems an outrageous disclosure of abuse. The threat of violence forces Taylor to delete her social media accounts. On her Facebook page, Taylor posts screenshots of emails and texts from anonymous men threatening to rape her, kill her, and cut up her body. Moreover, the men get her phone number, her home and work addresses. Due to Taylor's sharing of her sexual assault experience, her life has been placed in jeopardy. With the men obtaining details of her personal information and location on a day-to-day basis, Taylor is in extreme danger. The men describe proposed methods of disciplining Taylor in graphic detail. It is clear that they will not tolerate publicisation of her experience. Just hours after uploading these screenshots, Taylor's Facebook page vanishes. Her once highly active account, which helped to support victims of sexual abuse, is simply deleted. As it is no longer safe for Taylor to maintain a prominent social media presence, she has no choice but to abandon the page. The removal of her page so soon after the threats are made demonstrate the immediacy of victim silencing. As explained by Susan Jacoby, society prefers to avert our eyes from those who persist in reminding us of the wrongs they have suffered. The silencing of Taylor's voice facilitates continued ignorance towards the issue of sexual assault. Negative disclosure experiences prohibit Taylor from sharing any further details of her violation. Characters in My Dark Vanessa have their witness accounts of sexual violations suppressed by the patriarchal structure that underpins rape-prone societies. Vanessa's rape testimony is corrupted by strain. Meanwhile, negative disclosure experiences dissuade Taylor from sharing her experience of exploitation ever again. These obstacles conspire to impede Vanessa and Taylor from disclosing their experience of sexual assault. Fictional young adult narratives like My Dark Vanessa call attention to the silencing of young female victims of assault. By exploring the ways in which young girls are prevented from disclosing details of their assault, they provide insight into the attitudes and actions that facilitate these inequities in contemporary society and, by extension, underscore the necessity of dismantling such systems of oppression. Okay, so this is just my bibliography. I will just skim it really quickly, but you can pause if you want to take a more detailed look. Okay, and that is the end of my presentation. I will be happy to discuss any points further during our meeting, our live meeting, I suppose, in a few weeks. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'd be happy to talk about maybe any other young adult texts that can maybe be compared to My Dark Vanessa, or if there's any texts that have popped into your mind during this presentation, I'd be really interested to hear them. So thank you very much for listening.